Shamanettes, and welcome to The Beauty Shaman. So today we have the incomparable Andrea Flommer, author of Shopping for the Real You, here to talk about fashion and style, which I love having her on. Our videos always do really well because she's so knowledgeable. So thank you so much, Andrea, for joining us today.
It's always a pleasure to speak with your audience.
All right, so today we're going to hit on a subject, shapewear. So I am a big shapewear fan. I know you are too, and especially heading into the holidays. We're actually doing the shapewear video, and then we're going to do a second one on holiday dressing. So please, stay tuned for the second one because they both really blend together with how to use shapewear for some of those holiday parties. But having said that, I use shapewear all the time. So I feel like this is kind of more general, but in any case, we are going to hit on what body, like different body shapes, the shapewear that helps with that particular issue or struggle, and then we're going to get into brands. So we've got a lot of great content today to talk about shapewear. So I'm super excited to get into this. So Andrea, why don't we start off with let's talk about the different types of shapewear. And because
Well,
there's lots of different types, it's actually a huge field, right?
yes, right.
Right.
And I want to start out by saying that this is not this is not the girdles of yore.
Yes, very important.
If you've been a little bit reluctant or hesitant to look into the whole area of shapewear, I want to encourage people to just take a second look because it's a different way to consider these. You're not going to have the kind of boning and really tight fabrics and lack of breathability that maybe our mothers or grandmothers wore.
Right.
My mother hated them, understandably. But these days, they are what they're called zoned shapewear. So there are kinds that can deal with very different kinds of issues. Obviously, the derriere, and it can do multiple things. It can either tighten it up or elevate or augment. And then there's a lot of women, especially as they've put on some weight, are very concerned with back fat.
Right.
And so there are different kinds of shapewear that will help you, create a smoother, leaner, less bumpy line. And
Right.
then, of course, hips and thighs, and tummy for a lot of women who, a lot of my friends who still have their given birth still are concerned about little flabbiness or the excess, tissue around their waists. And of course, the breasts, because nature and gravity does its thing over time, and you could lose a little uplift. And then another area that many women are concerned about, a lot of women I know personally, about their upper arm flab.
Yes. That's a huge
And
area. Absolutely.
that's right. And so, as far as body types are concerned, um, for the derriere, women who tend to be more pear shaped do tend to put on a little bit more weight in the derriere and hip area, obviously.
Right.
The back fat area, that seems to be for women who tend to gain weight around their middle also. So that's something that you might be concerned about. The hips and thighs, again, that's also for a pear shape. Tummy, again, we talked about if you tend to gain around the middle, and those tend to be women who aren't necessarily, uh, you know, uh, hourglass.
Right.
People that tend to be sort of up and down and tend to gain weight all over equally or in the upper part of their body and not so much in their legs do tend to put a little bit of weight on around the middle.
Right.
And then for the breasts, a lot of women who are pear shape or who are, I'm sorry, not pear shape, who are hourglass or who have, or just are built heavier on the upper part of the body. That's a concern. And as far as the arms are concerned, I've seen that same thing that they don't necessarily have larger breasts, but they do have bigger shoulders. And that
Mm.
often, if they're not really working out a lot, there can be some flab there. So those are the zoned areas that you want to be paying attention to when you're looking at some of these products.
That's awesome. And I think every woman watching this is like, oh my God, yes, like, let me just, can I squeeze that in and like take off an inch or so? But, let's talk a little bit about there's different types. Like there's some that like completely reshape your body, right? And there's other ones that just sort of like tuck it in just a little
Right.
bit. Like there's more, it just depends. So can you hit on that?
Right. Some of these are called sculpt wear.
Uh,
And so there's a difference between having some shapewear that just sort of keeps things in a nice, even, long line without the bumps, and then having augmentation.
right.
Um, Augmentation is sort of like I describe the difference between the two as like the difference between wearing makeup and having plastic surgery.
Can we say Kim
So most
Kardashian?
shapewear,
Can we toss her in there? Kim Kardashian, right? Her line. We are going to get to that, but I wanted to throw
ah,
that in there because she's big on augmentation, right? So her
right,
new line Skim, I think, really does that. But yes, continue with the augmentation part.
right. So I think the difference is that it has to do with the boning and the textiles. Now, some of these still do have boning, but the boning is more flexible. It's going to move with you. If you are wearing a piece of shapewear, for example, if you're wearing one of those ones that goes from just underneath the bust to just around below the waist, and it tends to ride up, it simply means you're wearing the wrong size. It's usually
Right.
one size too small.
All right.
And so the bones should be able to be to fit flat on your body. And the textiles themselves will either hold you in more or less. And one of the interesting things you'll see about a lot of the ones that, especially the ones that deal with whole body or from the, just under the bust or above the bust to the thighs, you'll see these sort of cross stitching.
Right.
And so there's more emphasis in certain areas, which means a different kind of textile, more thick weaving, and then more like a mesh, but a stronger mesh, but not too tight, on the other parts that don't need quite as much compression. So there's the fabrics are different. They breathe differently. The ones that will hold you in more and cinch you tighter are going to be a little less breathable, we might say.
Mm.
But it depends on the event. One thing I wanted to mention, I read a statistic recently. The average size wedding dress for women in the United States is a size 14. I don't know what that is in other countries, but it's pretty up there. It's not what you see
Mm.
on the models, which are usually 2 or 4.
Right.
And what that tells me is that it's one of the reasons why shapewear has become very popular,
Right.
because for very special events or weddings, that's what a lot of these girls want, is to have a smooth line.
Right.
So there's nothing bad about having a really nice piece of shapewear that will make the dress hang the way it's supposed to instead of get hung up on certain parts of your body.
Right. So let me ask you, there's a very good friend of mine who I used to dress her for her TV
Right.
show. And so we spent a lot of time shopping and we used it as an excuse to shop like crazy all the time. Like it was really fun. And we had a budget and everything. It was wonderful. But her struggle was she was very busty. And I want to talk about the different types that people need to look into for their different issues, right? So,
Right.
for example, she was very busty, like couldn't buy her bras in the United States because they didn't have big enough, like very big boobies, right? And then, but she was pretty small every place else, but she did have a bit of a midsection. So she always struggled finding shapewear that again wouldn't ride up or that would hold. So what outfit for those women who have the bust and have more of a midsection, like what do they need to look into as far as style of shapewear to purchase? Do they need one that goes from top to mid thigh, or what would they look for?
Well, of course, it depends on what they're wearing over
Right,
it, because if it has sleeves on it, that's one type. If
right,
it's sleeveless or low cut, that's another type.
right,
But in general, from what you're describing, I would say that you that sort of woman would would do well with the bodysuit type of shapewear
Okay.
because that's going to deal with everything from well, it won't deal with the thighs so much unless you get one of those bodysuits that has leggings on it that go down to the thighs as well. But that will bring the whole look into proper balance, we'll say.
Mm, mm.
It will bring the waist in without making it look overly exaggerated, but it will keep the bust elevated and slightly compressed so that it's not as um, so that there's not as much differentiation unless you want to look like a bombshell and
Yeah.
have this,
The
in
boobs,
which
yeah.
case you can get, bullet breast shapewear
Yes, yes.
at some place like Fredericks or something.
Right. Like Madonna. Remember she went through that phase where she had like the huge pointed, anyway,
Yeah.
that was a Madonna moment. I don't know why I'm thinking Madonna, but okay, what about the ones with the arms? Because that's a huge one, wobbly arms. And women constantly would come in the green room and say, okay, but I've got this shirt on because I got to cover up my wobbly arms. So which one? I haven't actually seen, I don't know enough about this, which is why I'm talking to you. Does it go to like your mid arm? Is that what we're looking for, or what is it?
Yeah, they look almost like a shrug, but except
Oh,
they come around they can come around just to the arms and
oh,
shoulders,
interesting.
or they can cover the bust as well.
All right.
But they cover the upper back, which is terrific because sometimes these are also, have the duplicate use of being a back flab controller and
Yeah.
an upper arm controller. And they usually come about at least um, above the elbow or to the elbow, but generally a little bit above because this is where the area where you want to be controlled. So it's a whole piece that covers the back and covers the arms as well.
Okay, what about just the belly? Like someone doesn't necessarily need the bust issue, but bellies, we've all got a little bit more belly. Most of us have a little bit more belly than we're happy with.
Right.
So what do you recommend for that so that it doesn't fold up, right? Because then you get like the back fat start poking through sometimes with that. So
Well,
what do you
there are
say?
two options. There are the kind that come from just under the bust to just below um, the the hip line,
Okay.
and that would just cover the midsection in general. But there are a lot of panty style shapewear pieces that are just panties, but they have a little bit higher waist. And so if you can imagine, they come in, well, I guess you'll show some pictures. They
Right.
come in at the waist and slightly above. And that's a very good option for somebody who has a little bit more, that carry a little bit more around the midsection.
Right. Some of those are really good. Just depends. Like if you've got like the side, if you've got more on the side, that can like if that's mostly for the front, I guess is what I'm trying to say, right? Like if somebody has like a more of a front flab as opposed to the side flab.
Yeah, I think if you have more front, then probably, well, if the again, it's zoned. So
Right.
if you have the textile itself that does that angle that comes in,
Oh,
it
right.
usually puts more emphasis on the front than the sides.
Right.
So I think that's the kind of thing that you would probably want to look for.
And I probably shouldn't have used the word flab. After it came out of my mouth, I thought that's not a good word. That is the word I used to describe my own, though. I'm like, I got some flab over here. So forgive me if I offended anyone with that statement. I don't mean it that way. That's how I talk about myself. All right. So what about the lower half? So I'm a thighs and booty woman. So what about that? And then not getting any hangover when it comes to the front.
I think for that, the best thing would be one of those pieces that comes slightly either to the waist or slightly above the waist, but that fits down about, oh, I'd say halfway between the hip joint and the knee.
Mm,
Because what that does is create a straight line and an even line, from, not a straight line. And then it pulls things in, the flab pulls
right.
them in to create that smooth line. And there are a lot of those. In fact, those are probably some of the most popular ones because I think a lot of women who have pear-shaped type bodies are pear-shaped or larger bellies. Those are the people that tend to buy shapewear a lot. And I think that those longer ones that cover the thighs are extremely popular. I've seen them be extremely popular. I've even seen, I don't understand this one, but I've seen some of these that cover one entire leg and leave the other one open for a dress that has a slit in it.
Oh,
And I'm
interesting.
thinking, now wait, if you're going to expose one leg that has the same amount of flab as the other one, why are you covering up the other
Yeah.
one and it doesn't make sense. But I think that in general, it's those that come from the waistline or slightly above the waistline to halfway down between the hip and the knee.
That's the one I have. That's mine. And I wear it all the time because it just tucks it in just a little bit, right? And it
Right.
just looks for me because I'm so into all of this, right? It's just that lovely little tuck. But that's me. All right. So let's talk about did you want to say anything else about different? Did I miss any body part you wanted to talk on before we go into
I think
brands?
we've got the arms, boobs, the tummy, hips, thighs, back, butt. Oh, as far as scalp wear is concerned, there are if your boobs are starting to sag a little bit, some of the ones that come up just under the bust line will elevate your breasts. I don't remember if I said that earlier, but that's one option, that so that you don't need to have the full, if you have a breast, sorry, if you have a bra that you like a lot, then you don't need that. There is an interesting bra though I wanted to mention specifically because I'm going to get into brands in a minute,
Right.
but it's by a company called Shape Ease, Shapeeez, and Shape Ease makes not I don't like the word compression because your organs do need to move and
Right.
feel comfortable, but it elevates the breasts and it's got a big back covering the whole back flab issue from the upper back to the waist. So that's something that would be helpful for the breasts if you feel that your breasts are sagging a lot. We could get into bras, but that's a whole other subject that would
Right.
take an hour.
Right.
Um, but anyway, I think we've covered the main zones, and I
Right.
think that's something that look at the area look at the piece that you're going to be wearing, and look at the area that you want to correct. We'll say.
Right. Right. Okay, great. That's super helpful. So let's talk about brands. There's some really good, I mean, I've really seen an influx, as have you, of really cool brands. It used to be there was not very many, right? Now, like you've said, there's a ton. So let's get into the brands and what they really specialize in, what, according to your issue. So,
Right.
maybe let's just start from the top of your list here. Leonisa.
So we'll think about Colombian women.
Oh yeah.
Colombian women want to get an hourglass
Yes.
shape,
Yes. Yes.
and that's where you'll see a lot of Colombian. I don't know if a lot of Colombian women do, but women do go to Colombia to get butt augmentation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay,
Yep. Yep.
and so Leonisa really specializes in shapewear that gives you more of an hourglass shape, or that is, it's more for women that really want to look a little bombshell. I mean, they
Uh-huh.
have other things that are terrific too, but that's one area you could look at them. So that's one.
Wonderful. Okay. And I live in Ecuador, which interesting. I don't know if the audience knows that, but Ecuadorian women are so not into any of that, which is funny that I'm right here. And then Colombia is right next to me. I live in Cuenca, which, the next country over is Colombia. It's like a state, like it's right there. But it's complete difference, sort of aesthetic. So interestingly, but just wanted to
Very
point that out because a lot
interesting.
of the audience are like, don't you live in Ecuador? All right, so let's go to Kim Kardashian's Skim, her Skim brand.
Well, speaking of augmentation,
Yeah,
I
let's talk
think
about
dear
it.
Kim has probably not had any part of her body that hasn't been altered in some way,
Yeah, yeah,
but including her derriere, which she
Yes.
talks about. So you can expect there's going to be a lot of shapewear in her line, which is called Skim,
Right.
SKIM. Lots of booty shapewear, as can be expected, but she's getting great reviews. I mean, it might be just because her name is so popular and girls love being able to say that I'm wearing the same, shapewear that Kim Kardashian wears, but it does get a lot of great reviews. So it's worth looking at. They have lots of different styles. And I think she's really an up and comer in the area. So something to look at.
Cool. All right. What about Honey Love? I've actually been on their website. I like their website.
Honey Love, I love.
Yeah.
They are a great brand. I think they're in the US. I can't remember either US or the UK. They get absolutely terrific reviews.
Mm.
And one of the things that I like about them is that they have very breathable mesh. I don't know what brand you wear. What brand do you wear for the ones that you
Um,
like?
I wear Spanx. I've got
Yeah,
a
we'll
couple
get to
Spanx, but mine
Spanx,
are
right?
old. Like I really need to update. They're
Yeah,
getting a little bit too stretched out. So yeah.
yeah. I think they're closer to Spanx in their comfort level.
Oh,
I'm not sure, but they get really terrific views. So Honey Love is a one to look at. They have great bras and panties. And I think that I'm not sure. I think it's fairly recently that they've added shapewear, but they're really a contender.
awesome. What about Wolford? I love Wolford. I have two Wolford tights that have the shapewear built into the top of the tights, and they have held up so beautifully. I really love them. They're pricey, but they're worth it because they just last for so long. So I'm sorry, that's my little plug for Wolford, but go ahead.
Well, Welford is a company from the UK, and they are sort of the Cadillac version of underwear. They were known mostly early on for their stockings and socks and that sort of thing, but they've moved into the area of underwear and shapewear. And what the advantage there is, if you have a real aversion to a lot of plastic, we'll say, they have a lot of three-way stretch cotton underwear
Oh, nice.
that is, well, it can't be all cotton because it's got to have some spandex in it to
Right,
hold you in. But that's an option to look at. Look at Wolford, Wolford. And I think that might be more comfortable for certain women.
right. Absolutely. What about What Waste? I actually don't know this
What
brand.
what waste is one that I found fairly recently, and what you'll read about them is that the textile is very lightweight. And I think that matters a lot to people, to a lot of
Yeah,
women, that they don't so much mind the compression or the textile itself, but it's very lightweight because sometimes some of these shaper pieces can actually feel kind of heavy. And if the textile itself feels heavy, you start to feel like a sausage.
right.
So that what waste is one to look for?
Right. Awesome. That's great. I'll check them out. Maidenform, that's a very well-known brand.
I think any of the longtime traditional brassiere and underwear companies are going to be going in this direction more and more. And so Maidenform, of course, is. And one of the nice things about what they have is a material that is anti-static.
Oh, nice.
And you know, that can be a big one, especially if you live in windy areas or if you just you're or if you walk on rugs, on wool rugs, and or
Yes.
so that's Maidenform has that anti-static material that's worth looking into for that alone.
Awesome. Miracle Suit.
Miracle Suit is the company that made their name in the area of swimwear, often for women who have larger busts. And so, or who want to look like they have larger busts. So it was a natural for them to segue into shapewear. And they use the same sort of design and technology that makes your body really look terrific, especially if you want a more va-va-voom look. So if that's what you're going for, it's worth looking at Miracle Suit.
Awesome. I haven't heard of them either, so that's fabulous. Spanx. Okay, my go-to has been Spanx. I'm going to break free now and try a few others, but yeah, so talk about Spanx. That's really well known, I think.
Well, they started it all, didn't they?
They did.
It's Right. So I forget the name of the woman who started this company and turned it into a $1 billion company.
Yes.
And the reason that happened was because she touched a nerve.
Yeah.
She touched on women who hated the idea of a girdle, but who wanted a cleaner line underneath their clothing. And so you got to expect that she's going to be in the forefront of anything in this area and will have something for every area. They have one of the best things about them is they have an enormous range of sizes. So
Yes.
regardless if you're petite, because petites can have flab too,
Yeah.
regardless from if you're a petite or a plus, Spanx is going to have that, and they have a terrific track record.
Right.
So SPANX, check it
Right.
out.
Awesome. Love Spanx. Okay. Rhonda. I don't know this one. Arm Shapers.
Rhonda, yeah. Rhonda was the first one that I found for the upper arm shapers. And what's nice about that is that they have one, it goes around the arms and comes around the side under the bust and lifts the bust up. So you get 2 for 1, 3 for 1, actually, because you get some of the upper back flab, you get the underarm flab, and you get the bust elevation. So that's Rhonda, RHONDA.
Wonderful. Okay. Commando.
Okay, so commando is interesting. It implies something
Yes, sure does.
if you want to go commando, but it's the opposite of that because you're actually wearing something. But what they have, which is very interesting, is a full body slip. Remember when we used to wear
Yeah.
slips?
Yeah.
I think I still even have about 2 of them. But this one is a shaping slip, and it
Oh,
goes
nice.
from the upper body all the way down to the above the knee, and it's specifically for wearing under dresses, obviously. So commando is one to look for. If you just want to wear one piece and you don't want, and you're going to wear, like a thong or a panty underneath it, that might be an intelligent way to deal with the issue.
Wonderful. Well put. Okay. Last one is Knix, KNIX.
That's another one that I love. Knix, they're so comfortable. Um, they have very lightweight and breathable, what they call shaper shorts. And they prevent, what's interesting, they prevent thigh chafing.
Oh,
Now, I think a
nice.
lot of these would prevent thigh chafing anyway, but that's the way they advertise it. And that's the reviews that they get. And I think they are especially valuable for women who do have, who are heavier in their thighs and whose thighs tend to rub together. And they're great for wearing not just under shorts, but or under, obviously under slacks, but under uh, pants, obviously, but dresses as well. Because if you're, especially in the summertime, it's lightweight and it's breathable, because in the summertime, you don't want to wear something that's going to make you sweat a lot. And so, if that tends to be your issue, if your thighs tend to rub against each other, check out Knix, KNIX. And they have a lot of wonderful other things too. Their bras, and I think they have a lot of cotton stuff, but it's a great brand. It's worth checking out.
Wonderful. I'd never heard of them, so I'm going to definitely check them out. So, well, thank you, Andrea. This has been fabulous. I love all of your incredible knowledge, and I feel like the audience is going to be able to really use these, especially as we head into parties, which is going to be our next video. So everybody, please tune into the next one. But anyway, thank you so much for talking about all this, Andrea. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
And ladies, please write down below if you have questions, specific questions for Andrea. She's great. She'll go on, she'll respond, or if I can answer it, I'll answer it. But you can find Andrea at her website, which is shoppingfortherealyou.com. If you have any specific questions, she is a personal shopper and she is fabulous. All right. Thank you so much for watching The Beauty Shaman, and have an awesome day.